Hello and welcome to this, the 23rd in our series, The Mystic Bible, as we run down our final week towards Holy Week and then Easter. And I promised this week that we'd do some really interesting stuff, and I'm hoping today you'll find this particularly either A, exciting or B, challenging. The story in front of us in this 500-year-old Bible, in this wonderfully detailed image, is the picture of Zacchaeus up a tree. A well-known story from Sunday school, and even if you didn't do Sunday school, I imagine that you will have heard the story of Zacchaeus. Because he's too short, he climbs a tree so that he can look over the crowd and hear what Jesus is saying, and eventually Jesus spots him and a conversation ensues. But the significance of the picture here, and I'm sure I don't really, after all of these days, I don't have to point it out. Look at the supernatural element that's been introduced on and above the story. Here is something happening to Zacchaeus. Is this God's Spirit landing on him? Is this a change of mood or a change of heart? This is also a sun god image, which probably comes from one of the many pagan traditions. Not definitely, it could even be South American in its design, but ultimately it's not necessarily a traditional Christian image. And it's incorporated into this because of that mystical understanding that seems to run universally through people. And this 500-year-old Bible is reminding us about the nature of that humanity. I promised it would be interesting today, and I'm going to simply throw you the following challenge. Zacchaeus is going through an experience here. The experience is supernatural, a connection between him and Jesus. The supernatural is placed in the picture as a physical thing that's landing on him. But the question then comes is, how do we experience these things ourselves? I mentioned it yesterday, and ultimately it's one of these challenging questions. Do we experience these things these days? Of course we experience mood change, but what does it feel like to be touched by God? Do we hear a voice, as sometimes we say, or is it more like being a hand pushing us in the back? Is it just something that we feel like Zacchaeus in our minds, that we're being called to do something? But how do we experience those supernatural elements? So to start that part of our interesting journey, I'm simply going to offer the challenge. Let's start with honesty, because part of the problem of this is in this rational world, in a world where we're supposed to sound like reasoned Christians, actually, ironically, often trying to sound more reasoned than the world around us. We don't like to admit that we heard something, saw something, had a vision, experienced something in our lives that couldn't possibly be, that we think something is a miracle. We don't like to admit that we are being touched by something. And it's interesting because even that word touched used to mean, oh, he's a bit touched. He's seeing things, she's seeing things, they're experiencing something. So let's start with honesty. You know, on Facebook at the moment, people are posting lots of things about the strange dreams they're having during lockdown, visions and things that are happening to them. And they're always putting these little mysterious questions at the end. I wonder what it means. And then part of me thinks, I wonder if they already know what they think it means and they're hoping somebody will confirm it to them. You know, Freud and psychology say there's deep significance in dreams. What I'm driving at is that quite often this is an incredibly intimate and personal and hidden part of ourselves. But because it remains hidden, what was visible in this 500-year-old Bible might well still exist, but nobody here would be willing to talk about it, lest they be thought less of. So what have you experienced? Let's start from there. What have you experienced? What have you heard? What have you seen? What things make you think that something supernatural might have happened to you? It could be that you're watching this and thinking nothing supernatural ever happened to me. And that is a perfectly common experience. But a lot of people have experienced something. What was it? What did you experience? And how would you express it? That's the thought for today. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.